Hey, what's up, you metal maniacs? This is Max Kolesne, drummer for the death metal Brazilian trio Krisiun, and you're listening, watching RichardMetalFan.
So what's up, guys? Episode 80 of Richard Metal Fan Interviews here at the Masquerade in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm here chatting with Max from the almighty Krisiun. How you doing today, Max?
I'm doing good, brother. Nice talking to you, man.
Hell yeah. So you're currently on this awesome tour right now with Revocation, Alluvial,
Love you. And inoculation.
Inoculation. So how's the tour been going so far?
Really great, man. We're having such a great time. All the shows are crazy. People are going nuts with the death metal every night. So it's been a pleasure, and it's awesome to be back from the pandemic and have the chance to do what we most love to do, which is playing live and touring.
Awesome. So what I want to do with this is kind of like do a rundown of all the albums, as well as I want to talk about your latest album, but I also want to talk about like where your beginnings, like going back, what were like the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to start playing
Oh, a
drums?
long way ago, man. Long time ago. I started really young because, I am the youngest brother. So I was like listening to rock and roll since I was a kid, like a very young kid, a child. I was listening like to AC/DC, Deep Purple, ZZ Top, and some rock and roll bands, Brazilian bands. So I was introduced to heavy music when I was really young. And then later, I was getting more into getting the chance to know bands like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and, Motorhead. And then later, a little bit later, I was getting into the more extreme, more brutal stuff like Slayer, Sepultura, Dark Angel, Possessed, and then death metal.
Oh
Was
yeah.
like
Yeah.
I follow the roots from the roots to the most extreme music since I was a very young guy. So that's how it worked.
Yeah. So were you in any bands before starting up Krisiun with your brothers, or was Krisiun your first band?
My first band was Krisiun, man. I was
Yeah.
just like I became a drummer by accident because Alex had a band when he was a teenager. He was the drummer. They played like very like simple, basic, heavy metal, rock, whatever. And then Moises started to play guitars, and I never had any interest on playing drums. I was just a kid fooling around and I'm breaking stuff and stuff. And then for some reason they told me, Moises and Alex, they told me that I could be a good drummer because I had so much energy. I was always running, and I love metal, and I had the energy and shit. And then say, hey, you can try. Then I start playing drums, and Alex became the bass player, and then we kind of started a band like this.
Awesome. So it just started just like
Yeah, it was just like the beginning because the guys that used to play with Alex, they wanted to play soft music. Like Alex wanted to play more heavier stuff, and then the other guys, they were going, like different ways. And then since the three of us had the same taste for metal, we decided that the best idea was just try to start a band together because we were living in this very small city in the south of Brazil.
yeah.
So just like no bands, no nothing happening there. Just the three of us and some other guys.
Yeah. And so were you just like touring around it in Brazil locally before you got signed? To believe your first record was Dynamo Records.
Yeah, yeah. Was the Black Force Domain.
Yeah, yeah, the debut. What was the whole
So,
recording?
sorry, I missed it. Yeah.
Like, so what I was saying is, you were just touring around Brazil locally. And
Yeah, yeah.
Then your first label was Dynamo. How did they find
Yeah.
you guys?
Yeah, we moved. We started the band in the south, and then we moved to São Paulo, which is the biggest city where everything was happening there. Record labels, magazines, and shows, and bands, and contacts. So we had to move there. Back in those days, we had no internet, no nothing. So to approach people, like the labels and the promoters, you had to be there personally. That's why we moved to São Paulo. Then we started like playing every little, places around the city, and we would go to knock on the door of record labels and give them our demo tapes and and they were interested.
Awesome.
Good.
Awesome. And then of course the next album, Apocalyptic Revelation. Usually with the debut, you have your entire life to write it, right? And there's a lot of like hype with the first album. Did you feel like pressure to follow up Black Force Domain going into Apocalyptic Revelation?
Ah, yeah, kind of, man, kind of. I mean, we were savage, wild young guys, and we just wanted to play the most brutal, extreme music ever, and that's that was the spirit, man. Still is the same spirit nowadays, but there's always gonna be pressure. Any album, any new album we're gonna start writing and recording and release, there's always gonna be some pressure because we always gonna try to top the previous one.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think with the second album, did you start touring outside of Brazil, or you were still just playing locally?
No, actually, our first tour we did with Black Force Domain in 1997 in Europe. We were opening for Creator and Dimo Borger,
Oh, that's a hell of a lineup.
1997. Because when Black Force Domain came out, like by small labels, like this small label in Europe, and then Gun Records, which was like a kind of big record label in Europe. They released, all the classic metal bands like Destruction, Creator, and Sodom. They wanted to release Black Force Domain. They put out Black Force Domain, and then we had our first professional tour in 1997.
Damn.
And then right after the tour, we entered the studio to record Apocalyptic Revelation.
Shit. And hell yeah. Then that was still Apocalyptic, still a great album. But then you toured a little bit more, and then I think you got signed to Century Media.
Yes,
Yeah.
with Apocalyptic Revelation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. How did Century Media find you guys?
Well, the thing is, we had contacts with everybody. As I said before, we are like sending, demo tapes and CDs to everybody, all the labels, and they knew us, Central Media people, they knew us and they liked us. And the thing is, we signed a deal with Gun Records, but they only released the albums in Europe, and we wanted to have our shit released in the States, North America, South America, everywhere.
Yeah.
And Central Media was the right label to do it. And then we played Milwaukee Metal Fest, 1998.
Wow.
Yeah,
Was that
like
your
1
first
year
US
or
show?
1999. No, actually, we did a tour in the beginning of 1998 with Angel Corpse and Incantation
Hell yeah.
here in the States. That was our first tour in the States in 1998. And then in the same year, we came back just to play the Milwaukee Metal Fest, and the Central Media people were there. They watched us play, and they're like, "Man, we want to sign you guys."
Yeah.
That's how everything happened.
Yeah. I guess just to help also distribute your albums here in America.
Yeah.
Good. And then going to the next album, Conquerors of Armageddon.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how was that like being on like Century Media?
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, Conquerors is probably one of the most important albums for us ever. That was the album that exposed the band to the whole world, the whole metal scene. Everybody was like, "Man, check this out," because it has a better quality. We're a better band, playing. Writing better songs. I'd say, it's like I don't know, man. That's a very important album for us, and
Yeah. Kind of like your Master of Puppets in a way.
kind of, yeah. We're Raining Blood.
Yeah. Also
It's our
great.
third album.
Great
yeah.
fucking album.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Ageless Venomous, which this is pretty much the only time in you guys' career where it was a quick turnaround. Did you start writing for that after Conquerors of Armageddon?
Right
came out?
after, yeah, we were kind of young, and we were young, and we had so much energy that we were like, man, let's start writing the new stuff. We had so many ideas. Moises had like so many riffs, and we were just like jamming and writing the songs. I mean the songs are good. I like it's pure death metal. Just the production. I don't like the production. It's kind of weird, and we're like we're trying to do something different. Like let's make like this brutal, fast death metal, but with this clean production. And it came out the way it is, man. You know, just
Yeah,
it's
and I
the
know
weird. Every band has a weird album, right?
yeah, I know last year was also the 20 years of that album.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel about it looking back?
I feel great, man. I feel proud just for being, loyal to death metal, loyal to my brothers, all those years, playing together and just giving all we got.
Yeah, and then moving on to Works of Carnage. Of course, next year will be 20 years of that album. Like, what was that album like going from Works of
From Ageless, and
Venomage?
yeah, we were so angry with the final result of Ageless Venomous, and a lot of criticism, a lot of people talking bad things about the album, the production sucks, blah blah, and then we're like, oh, man, the new album has to be really raw and savage and aggressive, and short songs. That was the spirit. We wanted to make a raw and uh, 100% natural production, and that was the spirit when we started to write the album,
Yeah.
Works of Carnage.
Yeah, and then going into the next album, Bloodshed, which of course another quick turnaround, and I also know you guys recorded Analog for that album.
Yeah.
What made you guys decide to do that?
Oh, we always wanted to go against
The new school way.
the new school way. Is like everybody's is going so much digital and using a lot of technology, So you wanted to go the opposite way, go like old school style,
Yeah.
recording wise.
Yeah, and I love it. I think it's another underrated album in your guys' discography.
Yeah, it's just like a EP. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I always like to use the video game references. I always like. Do you find like EPs almost kind of be like side quests that's to sort of like lead up to the next album as like the sneak preview?
yeah, man, it's like you can see the transition from Works of Carnage to Assassination, and then we had Bloodshed in between, and then you can see that in Bloodshed we were already adding more some groovy parts, I would say, like slower stuff here and there.
Yeah. So do you always try to like take a different approach to every album, or is there usually like a formula that Krisiun sticks with?
Oh man, we definitely keep the same style, because it's the music we love to play. That's the
Yeah.
I think we were born to play brutal death metal. But yeah, there's always gonna be like it depends, man. Like when we're like writing, for example, the Great Execution, we were like I know it's some of the next questions. We
Yeah,
can
just
talk
going through the
about it later.
albums.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always gonna be like a different approach, little different approach. Like some albums were like, let's try to not try to make, but it's like a natural thing. If you release one album which is like 100% brutal and fast, and it's like 90% blast beats, next album you're gonna try to add a little, like different rhythms here and there, but the style is always gonna be the same. It's always gonna be brutal death metal.
Oh yeah. And then with Assassination, I love that. Love that album.
Yeah,
Tell
me
me a little
too.
bit about like that going from Bloodshed to Assassination.
Yeah, the thing is, Assassination kind of brought us back. Um, like we were back, with a great production, a great album, and good songs, because Ageless Venomous was like not so good for us, and then Bloodshed is just an EP, and yeah, some people like it, it's not like a big deal, and then Assassination was just brought us back like stronger than ever, I would say.
Yeah. And did you feel that way going into the next album, Southern Storm?
Southern Storm, yeah, kind of. Yeah, we recorded the next 3 albums with the same guy, same studio, same producer, Andy Klassen. Because we like Assassination so much. That album was so important for us because, as I said, the album brought us back to the sales and everything was better. And then Southern Storm, even better. Good production, heavy. And then the Great Execution also is one of the best-selling albums we ever
I think it's
released.
one of the best modern albums in death metal.
Oh, thank you, bro. Appreciate, man. Yeah, it's a different album, but it's crazy because in the Great Execution there's a lot of slower parts and slower songs, and we're trying to, to show some of the influences we have from classic heavy metal, for example, like Black Sabbath. There's a lot of we kind of mixed like some Black Sabbath riffs, like with blast beats.
Yeah.
We were kind of creating. I think we created something different
Yeah.
on the great execution because we kind of mix it up, like a lot of the old school heavy metal riffs and structures with a lot of the blast beats and the typical brutality from you expect from Krisiun.
All right, and then going into Forged in Fury, and that was actually the album that I discovered you guys on, and of
Oh,
course I
really?
have like a Forged in Fury
Oh,
patch
killer,
on
man.
the back
Fuck
of my
yeah,
vest. What was that whole like making of that album? I mean, I remember first seeing you all at 2016 Summer Slaughter, and that was the
Yeah.
first time I ever saw you guys live. Was
Okay,
on that
man.
album cycle.
Cool, brother. Oh yeah, that's I would say like Forged in Fury is a different album. If you check out the discography, it's maybe it's the most different album. I mean, songwriting wise, it's the album that has the most diverse album. Every song is different. Some songs are kind of there's even like one song that I mean, we always manage to add some blast beats here and there in every single song. And that album, there's like one song that there's just like one blast beat in the end of the song, and we're just like I don't know, uncompromised and 100% no compromise. Let's write some metal songs. Let's try something different, you know, more creative. Trying, I don't know. It's a different album. It's the most different album we ever put out.
Yeah, and then your previous album, Scourge of the Enthroned, I think
Oh, yeah.
I love it. With the making of every album that you guys do, does it get easier, or do you find every album to be like a new experience?
It's always as you mentioned before that for every album we try to do something a little bit different, and then we came from Forged in Fury, which is not so fast and a lot of more diverse, different rhythms, and we try different things here and there. And then for Scourge of the Enthroned, we're like, man, let's get back to like pure death metal, old school and fast, brutal as fuck,
Hell yeah. Yeah, and of course, with you guys just being a three-piece, does it make it easier to work together?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of it's never easy. It takes a lot of work, man. People don't realize sometimes after when you put out like 11 albums and then let's start writing new songs. You have to get 100% focus, and it's like Moises comes up with the riffs, but it's always like the three of us in the studio, and then we start building stuff together, putting the drums, with the guitars, and then the bass and vocals and everything. Like we work together, the three of us, and it's always a lot of work, man. Because once you have the ideas, you start building up the skeleton of the song, the main structure, and then we practice a lot to make sure when it comes the time for recording, you're gonna be ready to play this brutal music.
Hell yeah. And then, of course, the latest album, Mortem
Yeah.
Solace, one of my favorite albums to come
Oh,
out this year, and it's
thank you.
absolutely kick-ass.
Thank you, brother.
Was that intended to be kind of like a follow-up to Scourge of the Enthroned, or almost kind of like a new beginning for Krisiun
I think
in
it's
a
a
way?
new. Yeah, to me, I see this album as a step ahead of a Scourge of the Enthroned because it has the same spirit of let's write something really furious and fast and brutal, but even more. I would say like there's more diversity in the riffs, and I think the new album has a little bit of everything. Something from Black Force Domain and the Great Execution and Scourge of the Enthroned, and it's pure death metal, pure right there in your face, but still there's a lot of you can tell we are old school band, and there's a lot of influences from the old bands. A lot of old school Dark Angel or Slayer, and even like Iron Maiden. Some of the riffs, like the tempo of the Avatar, the beginning reminds me sometimes a little bit of even like Ride the Lightning or old Iron Maiden. So it's kind of as I said before, the mix of pure brutal death metal, but with a lot of the old school metal influences.
Right. Was there always like a preconceived idea making Mortem Solace, or was there a lot of like trial and error and improvisation?
Say again, sorry.
Was there a preconceived idea making Mortem Solace, or was there a lot of like trial and error and improvisation along the way?
Oh, it's natural. We follow the natural flow. You know, it's a lot of. It's always about feeling, man. Because in the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't feel like writing anything. We were not inspired. We're
Yeah.
just like, let's see what's gonna happen. You
Can't
know.
phone it in.
Yeah, we're like, fuck this. And then in 2021, we're like, we felt more inspired. We're actually really inspired because we were like practicing, and we felt like, man, now it's time to start writing new stuff. And we kind of talk about before, before starting like putting the first song together. We're like, man, this album's gonna be like more dynamic, more straightforward, and more death metal than ever.
Yeah.
Then we talk a little bit about it before, so everybody knows how to deal with the whole process.
Yeah, and I also noticed that you guys take a lot of time with your album because before that, the previous album was 2018, and then before that, 2015, and before that, 2011. Do you find it like the more you work on something, the harder it is to maintain that kind of like original idea?
Actually, man, it depends. Sometimes it take, like for example, it took a long time, for example, from the Great Execution to Forging Furious, like 4 years,
Yeah.
because we were touring so much. We had offers come in all the time, and we were like, man, let's. And then we kept touring, and then I think from Forging Fury to Scourge of the Enthroned was
3 years.
2015, 3 years, a little less.
Yeah.
And we are supposed to start writing the Mortem Solace maybe 2019, but we had to wait the pandemic. That's why it
Yeah.
took so long, man. So we don't like to spend, too much time to start writing new
Yeah.
stuff, but just because we had the pandemic and then it took longer.
Yeah, and going to songwriting, as a drummer, do you usually lay down and then have a drum pattern written, and then the rest of the band writes according to that, or do you need to hear what the guitar's are doing in order to lay down sort of the beat?
Well, the thing is, man, usually we have this chemistry going on. So when the Moises writes a riff, he already has an idea of what I would come up with. So basically, it's a natural process. He shows me the riffs, and then sometimes I try different beats, and then most of the times we always end up with the blast beats, like feeling the riffs, even like, because, we kind of, in some of the songs, some of the albums we did, we kind of created like some crazy stuff. Like Moises would come up with the riff like a slow, like a chaka, 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 chaka. That usually like in thrash metal you go like a and then I'll go in that kind of thing,
Makes you
So-
want to bob your head.
yeah, so he was like, yeah, I like that idea. And then we do songs like, for example, Combustion Inferno, and the riff is like a trun, 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 trun. Usually you do like a and then I play the triplets blast beat. It's different tempos and different stuff, but they go well together. And then he was like, yeah, I like that,
Awesome.
And then some
Yeah,
crazy
I know.
ideas.
Yeah. Anyway, got a couple more questions for you. Kind of like going into your live show, is there a similar energy to playing live as opposed to recording on CD, or they're kind of almost two separate entities?
I love. It's always better to play live because it's just like we don't worry so much, we just go crazy. But actually, to record, to me, it's kind of like playing live, but I can make mistakes because then you have to stop and start everything again. And I would say it's more like tense atmosphere. It's more physical to me to record. But then I record one song one by one, so I don't have to save energy. I go like start recording one song and just go, I give everything I can, And
Yeah.
actually recording Mortem Solace was basically like practicing because Moises was right there playing in front of me and was just looking at each other like, fucking yeah, man. You have to feel it. You
Yeah.
have to play with passion and heart when it comes to recording.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and I noticed like you have like now 11 albums. Does it get harder to like put a set list together when making an album?
Ah, yeah, man. Yeah, it's possible to, to play like songs from every album.
Yeah.
Like we have to always to choose like, for example, on this tour we're playing like 3 new songs,
Yeah.
and then there's not much like room left for the other albums, and we have to pick up, like, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and I noticed you also play with a diversity of different bands. Because the first time I saw you all at Summer Star 2016, it was, of course, the classics, Cannibal Corpse, and now
Yeah, yeah.
with some deathcore bands like Carnifex, Star to Reveal. But then I know you also did a tour with Cattle Decap, which is more kind of the atmospheric side of death metal, and then you played Slaughter Q 2019 with Exodus, who are just classic thrash, and now you're on this tour with Revocation, who are technical thrash. Do you ever notice like a different crowd reaction depending on the tours that you're on?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, it's always. But there's always the old Krisiun fans in the shows, so they always make sure it's gonna be crazy, and it's good to play with new school bands, to show our music, the brutal old school real death metal to the younger guys, so they can, know the old death metal.
Yeah. And then the final question I want to ask you is, coming from Brazil, one of the best countries to produce metal, of course, with you guys, Sepultura, and of course newer bands like Nervosa and Crypta. Was there like a scene in Brazil that you felt part of, or was it the goal for Krisiun to get outside of your country and play in front of different audiences in different countries?
No, there is a scene. There is a strong scene in Brazil. Oh yeah, there's a lot of bands touring there right now at this moment. A lot of, just Suffocation, Incantation. They just play Brazil like a couple of weeks ago, and there's like bands touring there all the time now. It's kind of busy right now, the scene, because the bands they love to play South America, and there's the scene there's it's good. But I mean, I think it's the same everywhere. If you're a metal band from here, for example,
Yeah.
you have to make it in Europe and the rest of the world. That's how metal works, because the metal scene, it's like you can live only on the local scene. You can, but the goal, I guess, for all the bands is to make in the whole world, to be able to bring your metal to Asia, to Latin America, North America, Europe, whatever, That's I think that's how it works for all the bands, despite the fact, where they are from, it doesn't matter, So it's, and now, we had to go to, when we started the band, like just go out and play Europe, or trying to get the band outside of Brazil, man.
Awesome. So before we go, just want to
Alright.
thank you for this interview.
Thank you,
Is
brother.
just anything else with Krisiun that you'd like to promote?
Oh man, if you like real brutal, pure savage death metal, check our new album, Mortem Solace, released by Century Media. See you.
Awesome. Everybody, Max from Krisiun. We'll see you next time.